Today's viewpoint has been underwritten by Badiato Real Estate, providing personal and professional real estate service since 1987. For all your real estate needs, call Diane Badiato at 402-690-4769. Linda McDermott with Fricke & Associates is an independent insurance representative, helping you with personal and business insurance, as well as your long-term care, life, health, and retirement needs. Come join the conversation at PoliticalInsidersReport.com, Nebraska's source for local politics. For visual messages with impact, Roger Snowden Media Productions. And now, here's our host, Chris Pierce.
And good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint with Chris Pierce. I'm your host, and today we have a great subject today. Today we've got Larry Bradley. He's the president of The Center Strikes Back, but Larry's also the author of the book Neither Liberal Nor Conservative Be, an action plan for people disgusted by polarized politics. And I've wanted Larry on the show. I've known Larry for a couple of years now, and he's been selling me on this plan, but we're going to talk about it. So Larry's got an interesting proposal called ranked choice voting. Now what that is, a proposal, basically, you get when you go to the polls in the primaries now, you get to rank the candidates. So if you've got 5 candidates, you get to rank them 1 through 4. And it's an interesting concept because what happens is your candidate could be completely eliminated from the election, but Larry's going to straighten me out on that. But he's been going around at the state legislature talking to state senators, selling this idea to see if we can change that here in Nebraska. Recently, in an interview in the Lincoln Journal-Star, Don Walton, Larry stated that Todd Akin won the Republican nomination for the Missouri U.S. Senate race with only 39% of the Republican vote. So basically, 61% of Republicans voted against him. And as we all know, he got thumped in that general election. So I know we were supposed to do some visuals before, but we're flying by the seat of our pants just like we do every week. And we're just going to go to Larry because things happen. Larry, thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
We fly by the seat of our pants. If you saw last week's show with Tom Becca, you'll understand how we do things here. But let's talk about this proposal that you've got going out there. And I've heard, and I've been in politics for years, and I've heard of runoffs. But what you're thinking about doing is runoff, but not the election, right? Not a separate runoff election.
Not a separate election, no. You, by changing the format of the ballot, which you had the graphic up there just a minute ago.
Oh, did we make it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It appears. So is that we can change things so that we don't have to have it. That's why we don't have runoff elections after the primaries, is because they're too expensive. In other words, just as you were saying, Todd Akin won in Missouri with 36% of the vote, which means 64% of Missouri voters preferred somebody else to be the nominee. But once the election was over, there was no recourse to go back and have a runoff between Akin and whoever was the next one.
Okay, Mike, let's try to get that graph of the Akin election up. I know we had plans, but for those out there, our director had a car accident, and she knows everything, we don't. So, but I want to take a look at that because it's interesting when you talk about, and it's not the 39% that really is striking to me, it's the 61% of Republicans that voted for someone else.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. And you're right, and that's huge.
Yes, and there's no recourse. Here's the thing. We talk about in our form of government that we want the will of the majority to prevail. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, how is it the will of the majority prevailing when you have 64% who vote against the nominee for the party?
Now, and we've got an example, we've got a graph of this that really, in the same cycle, 2012, same U.S. Senate, we had the same sort of situation here in our U.S. Senate race, the Republican primary, with Deb Fischer, John Bruning, Don Stenberg, and actually 3 others.
Exactly.
I think we've got that. Michael put that up for us too, but explain how that kind of came out.
Well, that came out, Fischer won, and let's say this up front so we don't get in trouble. We are not complaining that we don't have sour grapes because Deb Fischer won. Deb Fischer played by the rules. That was how the rules were. She won. What we're saying is that why are we going to have that kind of election again where we have a motivated minority dictating to the majority who the nominee is going to be?
Now, it's interesting because when we looked at some numbers, we looked at that particular race, if you look at, there's 547,000-ish registered Republicans in Nebraska. Now, only 192,000 actually voted. So if you kind of crunch those numbers, actually 14% of Republicans, registered Republicans in Nebraska, made the decision who their nominee is.
Exactly.
Now, is that something that's kind of boggled in your mind? Why we think? Do you think using this kind of ranked or consensus platform, do you think that will increase turnout for primaries?
So hopefully so. What really drives turnout is how contested the race is. Okay, not so much what kind of ballot you use, but the piece that I want people to understand is that we're trying to fix it so that people get a better shot at making this thing go. Losing the train of thought here just a little bit, but in other words, we don't want, here in Nebraska, we have gone from a circumstance where the nominee, as to probably who the nominee was going to be on the Republican side, was pretty well locked up.
In the past?
In the past.
Okay.
And then we had a change, and so now we're going to have at least 6 candidates running for governor for the state of Nebraska. Same thing with the U.S. Senate. We had pretty much a lock. Everybody thought Johans was going to run for re-election. Then Johans decided not to run for re-election. Then everybody thought, well, Governor Heineman will declare and run for that open Senate seat, in which case everybody is standing back and saying, well, no use in trying to overcome that.
So is your argument, I know in the Walton article, you actually mentioned that you think 2014 would be a perfect opportunity to implement this program, but do you think that's feasible?
Yes, it's still feasible.
Okay. Tell me, how is that? I mean, we're talking about of course, you and I talked yesterday, and we talked about how you're looking at just partisan statewide races.
Yes.
For this program to start.
Yes.
But we do have several up in 14. But given that we are now in September 2013 to get ready for a May primary just a few months from now, how can we implement this process?
Well, first of all, we've got to grease the skids before
Okay.
before the legislature meets. I have found a state senator who will sponsor a bill. Right now, the senator is saying that they will make it to be effective in January of 2015. My thought is, if the bill is up and on the floor, somebody's going to ask the question, wait a minute, why are we waiting until January of 2015 when we have 2 very key election spots open, U.S. Senate and governor, to use this process in?
Okay.
And so why don't we use it now?
But don't you think that you're going to have a tough time getting enough elected officials who, by their sheer nature, are candidates to sign off on something that could jeopardize them?
The majority of the people who are in this are not affected. They are, the unicameral is the one who are going to vote for it, and I'm specifically excluding them from the proposal.
Well, they're a nonpartisan race anyway, but it still
Yes.
is a partisan governor, a partisan race as governor who's going to have to sign that off. Do you think Heineman would do that?
I'm a little uncertain about him, but I think there would be enough support. The key question is, do we want rule of the majority? Do we want the will of the majority to prevail? Or are we willing to continue to run an election cycle, which is problematic? Anytime you have what's known as a winner-take-all ballot or first-past-the-post ballot, which is what you're all used to out there, you only get to vote for 1 candidate out of 6.
Well, but that goes back to our core ideal of 1 person, 1 vote. If I can see how some people could look at this and say, well, actually, it's 1 person, and let's say for this last Senate race, I can vote up to 5 people, so I get 5 votes.
No. You get to rank order your choices. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I'm saying is, when you have multiple candidates and a winner-take-all ballot, then you have problems, because then you're unable to determine the true will of the majority within the party. Okay? And so this new ballot process is the reason we don't have runoffs now is they are too expensive. Okay, plus the time factor. You have the primary, and then what are you going to do? Wait another 6 weeks? And so you're delaying the ability of the party's nominee to be named for another 6 weeks, and so they're being hurt that way.
Just quickly, because I know that before we end the segment, there's a number of municipalities that do use this or use a variation of this concept, but there's a number of municipalities that actually use runoff races. I know Atlanta's one. I've been down there. So you see this, quickly, you just see this as a better alternative than doing a runoff election?
Yes, it's affordable, and it gives us a better result than we're going to have with a winner-take-all ballot.
Okay, well, when we come back, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to give Larry about 10 minutes to really take it step-by-step how this process works, so that when you go in the ballot booth and you see that new ballot, how that's going to work and how that affects your choices. So we'll be right back.
For 45 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.
Do you know about 211? It's help for an elderly relative or a troubled teen, family counseling, or job training. Instead of hunting for phone numbers, dial 211. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to someone who will find the local information you need. United Way and its statewide partners want you to get connected and get answers. Dial 211 or go online at ne211.org.
Hey, welcome back, Viewpoint. I'm your host, Chris Pearson. Today we have Larry Bradley, the author of Neither Liberal Nor Conservative Be, an action plan for people disgusted by polarized politics. And we've been talking about a process, an election process that's new. It's called ranked choice voting. And what we're going to do in this segment with Larry is he's going to take a step-by-step how that works from the time you enter the booth to the time that, whether it be your election commissioner or your county clerk or the Secretary of State's office counts your votes and how that works. So, Larry, I'm giving you the floor and educate us.
Okay. Ranked choice voting is used a lot of different places. One of the places where it's most predominant is in Australia. They use that to elect their parliament, which is their form of our Congress there. It's been used in a lot of different municipalities for state judges and everything else. It's new. It's new like computers are new, because without computers, we wouldn't be able to do this.
Okay.
But the advent of computers makes it possible for us to have an instant runoff process in place to determine a 50%, in other words, what we want is we want an election result that gives us a winner with 50% plus one vote or better. That's what we want. Can we put up the chart of showing the sample ballot? Now, what this means for you as a voter, looking at this chart, is, as you know, right now, if there's an office for you to vote for, you only get to vote for one candidate. You cross your fingers and mark the box and hope that your candidate win. With this process, as you can see there's the various columns, you get to say what your choices are. Here's my first choice, here's my second, here's my third, here's my fourth.
Now, before you go on, Larry, they don't have to fill out all those choices, correct?
No. If you don't fill out all the choices, your ballot would not be invalid.
Okay, good.
Okay? So if you're a voter who says, I want so-and-so, and if so-and-so doesn't make it, then I don't care who for anything else, you can mark your ballot that way. Mark that person as your first choice, and you're done.
Okay.
It's okay for you to do that. But here's an opportunity for you to express yourself and say, okay, so-and-so is who I really prefer, but if so-and-so, if not enough other people agree with me that so-and-so should be the winner, then here's my second choice. This is the person I want to win next. And if not enough people agree with me on this other one, then here's my third choice, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down, you can mark your top three. If there's 5 candidates, you can mark your top 4, whatever. There's also a place on that ballot for a write-in candidate, and you can rank. So if you had 5 candidates and there was a write-in, then you could rank 1 through 6 as you wish, going through there. So you have a lot of flexibility for you in being able to mark that ballot up.
Okay. So we're going to use, as an example for here, and we're going to use the 2012 Nebraska U.S. Senate race that we've been talking about. But I want to be careful. I have taken some liberties with some numbers when we start doing these step by step. So don't think these results would have ever happened or anything like that. But we wanted to give you guys an example of how this could work and how those votes would be split up and reallocated. So and we want to reiterate as well, we're not using this because we have
for sour grapes because we're unhappy with the results. We're only pointing out that this is another type of election where you have multiple candidates and a winner-take-all ballot, and therefore you can have a winner that does not have 50%
So let's
plus one or better.
let's look at the first slide.
Look at the first
There it is.
slide. And here you see, as I see, that Deb Fisher won with 41% of the vote, okay, which is fine. That's by the rules and everything else. But we think that our elections should give us a 50% plus one or better result. So let's look at the next chart real quick. Now, how this works, based on you having marked your ballots with the choices, is when all the results are compiled, then the computer goes through and the computer says, okay, which candidate, well, the first question that the computer asks is, does somebody have 50% plus one or better? And if they do, then we have a winner. There's no anything else further required. We have a winner. It's just like it is with the winner-take-all ballot. But if we don't have that, as we don't have in this case, then the next question the computer asks is, which candidate has the fewest first choice votes? And in this case, that would have been Sharon Elander. So what happens then is the computer goes through and says, okay, for all the Sharon Elander voters, who are Sharon Elander's second choices? And here arbitrarily what we've done is we gave the same number of votes. We had a plus one there to round off, and we gave Don Stenberg 423, but we redistributed those results there. And as you can see, we still do not have a 50% or better result, and so we're going to have to go to the next candidate with the fewest first choice votes. So if we can have the next chart there with the line through Zimmerman, okay, Zimmerman then again does not have sufficient votes, so we redistributed a Zimmerman's votes, voters' votes. What if, real quick, just to kind of show you how this worked, what if a Zimmerman voter still had their first choice vote the first time around, but their second choice was Sharon Elander? Well, that would mean we would go to a Zimmerman voter's third choice as their highest choice. So in other words, as we eliminate a candidate on our search to get somebody to 50% plus one or better, then what we do is we take their highest choice vote. So in other words, if an Elander voter's second choice had been Fisher or Bruning or Stenberg, then they're pretty well going to stay with it till almost the bitter end. Okay?
And the one thing I want to share with everybody is, for the math geeks out there, you're going to notice that the numbers don't add up. And that's something that I did purposely because, as we said before, not everyone will fill out that ballot.
Yes.
Or they won't vote at all, one way or another. So
Yes.
then actually what that does, that actually brings the total number of votes being considered down as well.
Yes. In other words, real quick example. With ranked choice voting, you may have heard the term overvoting or undervoting and spoiled ballots when we're using winner-take-all ballots. With ranked choice voting, you could have something called an exhausted ballot. In other words, you've got somebody who only named their first one or two priorities, and then those first one or two priorities go away or are eliminated because they didn't get enough votes. Okay, well, we'll go back and we'll look at that ballot again, but because no other choices are marked, that ballot is exhausted as far as contributing to the final end result. So moving on finally to Pat Flynn, obviously again did not have enough votes, so they are, again, none of those three at the bottom had enough votes to alter the end result. By adding those votes, even if we added them all together and put them with one single candidate, they would have not had enough votes to have altered the end. Okay. Now we've arbitrarily distributed them, as you see there. We gave Dave Fisher 680, we gave John Bruning 3,112, and we gave Don Stenberg 912. Like I say, this is purely an illustration to show you how this might work. And so as you see there, Fisher's still in the lead with 80,000 votes, but at 41.96% of the vote. Bruning has moved up now in our example to 38.31, and Stenberg has 37,810. So we're going to leave it there and just say this, that what would happen now is whoever the second choices of the Stenberg voters are going to be the determiners of the outcome of the election.
Because Don Stenberg voters have enough for either candidate to win and get that 50%, including John Bruning, correct?
Yes, yes. And so what's better about this? Again, you're going to end up then with a consistent winner, a winner that shows the will of the majority in this election. In other words, we didn't have, what you can have is you can have a situation where you have 60% of a party believing in one philosophy, but two candidates run and split the vote, and a second segment of the party believes in a second philosophy, but only one candidate runs, and therefore the candidate that represents a minority view of the party ends up thwarting the will of the majority.
And I'm sure I've got a question for some of our next guests when we come back. But we're going to be joined by three political party experts, political party leaders from the Republican Party, from the Liberty Caucus of the Republican Party, and then also from our Nebraska Libertarian Party. So when we come back, they'll be joining Larry and I, and I'm going to take a step back and let them fire at Larry. So we'll be right back.
The Midwest Ovarian Cancer Association mission is to support women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, to educate the public about the disease, and to support research. Currently, most women diagnosed with ovarian cancer have advanced disease and require prolonged medical treatment. Our goal at MOCA is to see fewer women diagnosed in advanced stages and to assure all women the availability of support and access to information. Please support these efforts by liking us on Facebook.
Selling cookies is about
the big picture. You have to have a goal. A big goal.
something you and your team
Want to do in the world. We choose where the money goes. A trip. An adventure. Helping people out.
helping a lot of people out.
And about the money. We
Are responsible for it.
handling it, managing it, tracking it, doing great things with it.
This is business.
Girl business
The biggest girl-run business.
in the world.
Did you think this was just about cookies?
Okay, for those who haven't seen the show, this is our third take. We always have fun when the camera's not on. All right, welcome back. We have been joined by three party power players here in Nebraska with Larry and I. First, we're going to start with Mike Knebel. Correct. I've been practicing. He is the communications director for the Libertarian Party of Nebraska, and he's a national representative to the National Libertarian Party. And then we've got John Tucker. Easy name. Easy name. He is the vice chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Nebraska. And then, of course, our good friend who's been on the show before, Douglas County. I actually put DCDP on here by accident. But he's actually the chair of the Republican Party for Douglas County, Bryan Baumgart. So thanks, guys, for coming in. And they have been here during the first two segments with Larry. And let me tell you, as I'm looking at the notes, they've got lots of notes for Larry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We'll kind of keep this civil. But I'm going to start with Bryan because you're our returning champion. So what do you think? Is this process, this consensus, this ranked voting, is that something that parties can benefit from?
Well, thanks for putting me in the hot seat, first of all.
You're the only one? Oh, I was going to say you're only here without a jacket, but you got Mike.
Yeah. I listened to it, and it's something that I think the parties can be open to. It's going to be a tough sell.
Sell to who? Who do you have to sell it to?
The major parties, I think, especially the power players or well, like you discussed, the candidates that have the best shot of winning probably have the most to lose from it too. So,
but don't you see? And I'm going to pick on you a little bit.
Okay.
The Republican Party, because hasn't the Tea Party across the country taken advantage of this minority rule of parties to get power? I mean, Todd Aiken as an example. There's been many. Murdoch of Indiana. I mean, I personally know Dick Lugar, love him. I think he's a great guy. Mm-hmm. But do you think the Tea Party movement has used that ability where the minority dictate who nominees are to get where they are today?
I think that could be one side of it. I think the other side, you have this might give an opportunity for third-party candidates or grassroots candidates that might not have had a chance. If people are going to have a chance, when you go in to vote, some voters out there might look at it like, hey, I don't want to waste my vote, so I'll vote for the lesser of two evils. And the argument for your proposal is that it takes care of that. You don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils. But like I said, I think sometimes those candidates that have the best chance of winning also have the most to lose from this.
All right, Mike, coming from a third party, you and I have been on a stage before, and one of your famous lines is, "There's not two sides to the issue. There's a third one too." So, can this proposal? Can it help? Can it hurt?
I honestly think it can definitely help. There's just a couple things that I had some questions on, though.
Sure, go fire away.
With this type of proposal is one of the things that other parties have a tendency to fight against is not only the wasted vote syndrome that you had talked about, but repressive ballot access laws. And so I guess my curiosity is, with this being implemented in other municipalities, has it changed any of like the ballot access that you're aware of, or has it had any negative effects on the parties otherwise?
So far, this approach has mainly been used in municipalities and some limited statewide things. What I'm trying to do here is to show this to people. You got to walk before you can run, and that's why I'm limiting it to the party primaries, so that people get to go in there. You alluded to something that I think is very important. Number one is that it gets away from the what you just alluded to is called the spoiler scenario. And what this does is it's voting with a net. It gives people the freedom to say, you know, this is my absolute first choice, and I'm going to vote for this person, by gum. And if they don't win, that's fine, because I get a second choice. So people get to vote their druthers more with this than with any other system.
Now, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I sort of, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I sort of see the Liberty Caucus as a voice with another voice within the Republican Party. Okay, can this help those that are more part of the Liberty Caucus get a stronger voice in the Republican Party when it comes to this elections?
I think the proposal sounds like it can, where a third party or somebody who's in a minority can have some more of an input and maybe roll up the chain a little higher to get that higher vote, and if anything, to at least provide more information to other voters as they move up. If they're always going to be third, fourth on the ballot under the winner-take-all method, but they rise up to be a second in there, even getting a second place can attract more people to your side.
Do you think, which would you prefer, from a party point, from a candidate support point? Would you rather have this where the runoff sort of takes care of itself, or have a runoff system where, sort of like we do in the state legislature, where the top two go on to the general? It's sort of a runoff, but it's not. But is that something that is more attractive, or having it all happen at once?
Keeping it as, it means keeping it as is, or?
Well, currently we don't have a runoff system.
Right. So doing a runoff or doing the instant runoff is what you're.
Right.
I would propose neither. I would say no, just keep it the way it is.
Okay. So you're an advocate of a winner take all.
Yes.
Okay. John, I got to ask you, how can, I guess what I want to ask is, being from the Liberty Caucus within the Republican Party, wouldn't a runoff, and this is why I asked you this question, wouldn't a runoff help that if you got a Liberty Caucus, a true Liberty Caucus candidate in the top two, don't you think you have a better shot of winning that election rather than a consensus where it happens all in the primary?
What's the goal? Is this a short-term goal to get a count on a ballot to make the RLC look better, or is this a way to use this method to then become a majority rule country? We don't believe in majority rule. We believe in the minority in this country. What Larry's saying is a 50% plus one, which is a majority. It takes 12 jurors to convict somebody, not 7 out of 5, that kind of thing. We don't believe in majority rule. This is majority rule, and if we allow this to occur, this is going to go right on through the system.
Okay, Larry, respond to that, because I think that's a good point. Where we've always, as a country, protected the minority to ensure that even the rules of Congress, the minority has special rules so it can't get squashed. Will this kind of squash that minority voice?
No, I don't think so. Here's why. Obviously we are a constitutional republic, and the rights of the minority are protected by that Constitution. But what we're saying is that in the conduct of our elections and the nomination of the candidates to go forward into the general election, we want to make sure that the candidate who goes forward is a reflection of the will of the majority of that organization, of that political party.
So of the popular people, the popular vote, the uninformed voter, those people are going to be the ones who decide how who our representatives are. We put together this country as a people who got involved. Those people who got involved, and yes, we live in a party system, so those people who get involved in the party system get to make the decision on who the candidates are going to be. That's really where it's at. It's not the people who don't know what's going on. They'd rather talk about Miley Cyrus than Syria right now. It's not those people that we're trying to attract. It's the people who are involved, active, get active in the party, understand who your candidates are, put people forward, and back those people. That's what this process is about, is action, not just sitting back and voting. And I would say that the ballot would actually limit people from doing that voting because it's a very complicated ballot. There's people have to then decide in the ranking, they're going to mess up their ballot, ballots can be thrown away. There are issues even with this new ballot system.
Well, I would say to you, a minute 23.
We're fine, don't worry.
is the idea, again, this is going to give people the ability to vote for the lesser known candidate and to promote them and to say, whereas before in this system, people say, well, I really like such and such candidate, but if I vote for such and such candidate, then I'm going to take votes away from the candidate I really think is going to win, and therefore the candidate that I like least is going to win. And so what's more is, I think by instituting this system, and it applies to both parties, all parties and their primaries, you're going to have a more interesting system that's going to attract more people to your party to help you determine within your party which candidate ends up running to represent you in the general election.
Now, Brian, he brought up a point that he's bringing a point that it could drive more people to the primaries. But I think there's another point there. Aren't primaries really the winners? It's a popularity contest. I mean, I know you talked about lesser known candidates, but really, not just primaries, but any election is really a popularity contest. Whether we like who you are, we like what you look like, or what you say. But can this be a tool to bring? I mean, when you look at 14% of all the Republicans in Nebraska decided who the nominee was, just the number itself is kind of shocking.
It was still the majority of the Republican candidates that chose that, though, in the primary.
She got 41%. She did not get 50%
no,
plus
but
one.
she got, what he's saying is, she got the majority of those that did vote.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so in essence, the majority did win, right?
Yeah.
No, not technically.
Well, but I think the majority of those that casted a vote voted for
She got a
Fisher.
plurality. She got the largest plurality
Right,
of those who voted.
I see.
Okay,
Yeah.
She did not get 50% of all those who voted plus one. This is a process that yields a winner who has 50% plus one or better.
Does it
That's-
always?
Yes.
Are there any circumstances where it does not?
You can get into a little piece there, and I see we're on the
No,
time.
you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, because of exhausted ballots. And let me give you an example. Let's say we had 5,000 people vote. We'll use a round number. And so you would expect that the winner would have 2,501 votes, okay? But because people will screw up the ballot, as they do right now with the ballot they have now, or they don't include the final two people in their rankings, okay, you could have a result where it's 2,200 versus 2,100, okay? And so where's the other 700 ballots? Well, those ballots are people who didn't include the final two candidates in their rankings. And that's why we're 700 less than we should be. But everybody has an equal opportunity to fill that ballot out. Nobody's restricted from that.
And I think when we talked yesterday, when I was doing research, he brought up a point that if they don't fill out all the rankings in this scenario, that is their vote. They are choosing not to do it. So
But that does impact the majority.
It does.
Right.
It does. You're right.
So it's not 100%, it's going to be a majority ballot winner.
Yes, but you still got down to two candidates, and one
But
had
you're-
more votes than the
And
other.
if I'm voting that, I almost feel obligated to fill my ballot out completely, because otherwise it's thrown away. So I have to.
Well, we
I
would
do have
hope
to vote for
everyone
lesser.
fills out their ballot completely.
Right, but I have to vote for the lesser two evils or the five evils that are there. My one candidate
Or
is
write
on top,
in
but I still have
KRIS.
to.
But we got to take a break. Larry, I want to thank you for coming. We're going to have your website on our in credits. I think it's something that it's interesting. We really just barely touch the surface of it. But we're going to bring the party power people back with us, and we're going to talk about politics and the impact if this actually could happen. We'll be right back.
Like me.
Like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
homework help,
Exercise.
a safe place to stay after school, everything. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club. Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls Club.
And welcome back to Viewpoint. Beautiful Saturday morning, we hope so. Because we're not really Saturday, and you all know that anyway. Anyway, Larry Bradley, we want to say thank you for him to be on the show. But we're left with a political power team here. We've got Mike Knebel. He's the communications director for the Libertarian Party, and he's a national representative for the National Libertarian Party. John Tugger. He is the vice chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Nebraska, and of course our good friend Bryan Baumgart, who is the chair of the Douglas County Republican Party. You will notice that we have an empty seat at our table. And that seat we reserved for the Democratic Party, which we invited on many occasions. And in an email to us, the chair of the Democratic Party, Vince Powers, said he is going to decline to participate in this conversation. And that's unfortunate because, as you all know, we try to make sure we have every point of view covered when we have a conversation on any topic. So we hope that they will come on our show and be part of the conversation. So with that, in the empty chair,
Yes.
let's talk about, let's finish up here about this consensus voting and how the impact on the political system. I know, Brian, you had some things that you wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah, one other concern that crossed my mind. John brought up the fact that people might go in and feel obligated to fill out, and I know they don't have to, but they might feel obligated to fill out the ballot entirely, vote for each one of those choices all the way down. And how much do they know about their third choice, you know? My concern is that when you looked at the slides in the beginning of the show and you eliminated somebody's first choice and their second choice, but their third choice is up there. They're listed as their third choice on the ballot, might not know anything about them. Mm-hmm. Should that vote count as much as somebody else's first choice?
So you're saying maybe there should be a weight system between the choices?
Well, that's
I hear from the libertarians over here.
Well, I'm just kind of concerned when you start talking about a weight system to the choices, because then to me it almost sounds like we're going into a BCS style when we're.
Well, but you're not weighting the candidates, but the actual choice, right?
Yeah, I guess.
No matter who is in that first choice, it's that choice that's weighted, not the person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, but it sounds like you're saying, so the first choice gets like a full vote, second choice would get a full vote. Then I guess I'm a little bit confused.
Well, I want to clarify that's not something I'm advocating for, but it was a concern with Larry's proposal. The way it was that somebody's third choice vote could count as much as somebody's first choice vote. Yeah. You know. And I guess if you were to look at a weighted system or whatever you want to call it, where maybe somebody's first choice is worth 2 points and second is worth 1 or something. It does. I think it alleviates most of the issues that Larry wanted to address, like not having to vote for the lesser of two evils and things like that. You might still go in and throw your first choice to the candidate you want most, and then your second choice to your safe bet or whatever you want to call it.
But Mike, isn't that what politics and elections have become? Is really electing the lesser of two evils nowadays? I mean, if let's just plain speak here.
That's exactly what it is now, but my point on the majority is that we have to protect the minority. And if we allow ourselves to go down this road of majority rule, and we start with what we're talking about here, and this is a focus of the Republican primary and talking to a Republican governor to change this, we're talking about moving this then to eventually the national election. This, to me, this movement of this ranking of the voting is a way for us to move to a national popular vote, where California and New York will tell us who the president will be. It has to start somewhere, and it starts right here in Nebraska. It starts in other states. There are 42 other states that have not done this. There are 8 states that do have some sort of ranked voting kind of thing. It is growing. It's like Common Core Agenda 21. It's growing. And if we don't stop it now, it's going to be a popular national vote years from now.
But I think I'm going to argue with you a little bit, John, because Nebraska and Maine are the only two states where electoral college votes are determined by congressional results. 2008, Nebraska was able to split off the 2nd district for President Obama. The other 4, ended up the 3 and a 1, went to I forgot. Was it John McCain? It's been so long ago. John McCain. But yet you don't see any other states jumping on that. And I think that's
Actually,
probably
you
the
see
closest.
some states that bring it up, and it all depends on
they
who's
bring
in
it
control.
up,
It
but-
all depends on who's in control.
Right, but I think that's probably the closest we could ever get to a one-person, one-vote in a national election, because I think you're right. Democrats won't allow California to go that way. Republicans won't allow the Carolinas.
Recently,
or
Pennsylvania was looking at changing it back
Pennsylvania, Texas, they won't allow that. So it's kind of.
Well, but with that, you get into a situation which happened in Nebraska. After that, there was the redistricting, and that's why District 1 and 2 sort of changed borders, was primarily as a result of the splitting of the electoral vote. Yeah, I know, right? So shocking, isn't it? But
really?
Well, and I can see that there's some positive points to this aspect of it, and I could think, especially with the Republican Liberty Caucus, the majority of voters in the state have been moving away from considering themselves Republican or Democrat. The independents have been growing more. Libertarians, percentage-wise, have been growing, but let's face it, I mean, we're not where we want to be.
Well, I want to stop you because there's a good question I want to talk about, because it kind of goes to the consensus. Should Nebraska go to an open primary? Because think about it. For those who are registered nonpartisan, cannot vote, except for federal elections, in partisan races. So if I'm a nonpartisan, I can't vote for who I want for county commissioner.
I thought the primary you can grab whatever ballot
You have to re-register.
Right.
If you think about you think about the Heineman-Osborne race,
yeah,
a lot of
you're
Democrats switched to Republicans so they could vote for Osborne. Right. There's that phenomenon. Is a compromise to make sure people can vote who they want to, because you're right. The nonpartisan registration is growing in the state, but yet because they do that, they are restricted to how many.
But if they open primary, somebody could, one side could come in and do it, like you just said, even more so.
But it happens anyway, John.
Why do we need the open primary then?
Because I think the nonpartisan. I think the nonpartisan and the sheer number that they have. You have to say what ballot you want. You have to say I want the Democrat or I want the Republican or what. You just can't vote them all. You have to declare. But at least you get a choice, and you get a choice of who I want to be affiliated politically. Or is that just something Republicans don't want?
You're asking the wrong person. No, I think John brings up a valid concern, though. Rigging it, you know what I mean? Like bringing people in and you can have an impact on somebody else's, a different party's candidate, selection of their candidate, and that is a real concern.
But can't we do that? But can't the same situation happen in this ranked voting, where we organize to vote Republican, but we want to vote for the lower guy, so he gets.
I'm sure there are certain.
Or make sure that maybe we'll make Fisher our second choice, but make our first choice this guy.
And there are ads and probably money spent to do just that, to subvert other people's campaigns.
So it's helping our economy here in Nebraska.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're going to be right back. We're now that I got these power players here, we're going to talk some other politics here in Nebraska, and Douglas County and around the state. So we'll be right back.
My son, the Cub Scout, helped raise money to make camping safer.
My son, the Cub Scout, stood up to the school bully.
My son, the Cub Scout, volunteers at the homeless shelter.
My sons, the Boy Scouts, helped clean up after the devastating flood.
My son, the Eagle Scout, helped save a man's life.
My sons, the Eagle Scouts, are defending our nation.
My son, the Eagle Scout, became a doctor,
civil engineer,
police chief,
wonderful husband and father,
state senator.
JoinScouting2012.org. For 45 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.
All right, welcome back to Viewpoint. I'm your host, Chris Pearson. We've got our political power team here. We've got Mike. I'm not doing last names. Mike, John, and Brian. Last names are too hard sometimes. Anyway, but I'm glad I got you guys here. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I wish I had the Democratic Party here. Invited many, many times, both at Douglas County and the state level. And I'm really kind of sad they're not here because I think they could be a big voice in what I want to talk about next, which is the parties in Nebraska are in a bit of flux. And I'm talking about all of them. I mean, if you look at the Democratic Party, they've lost any statewide office holders. They've lost any federal office holders. They're in a rebuilding year. The Republicans in certain parts of the state seem fractured. And then you've got Mike, who's just sitting pretty, looking and saying, "I will take you all." So is this just a valley in the political scheme, and we're for party organizations, or is this where people across the country, party affiliation has not been that important to people?
I don't know, but I think the Democrat Party has definitely got that lost decade syndrome going on right now, and whatever that is for, I don't know. But I'm curious what you think, or what's this fracture in the Republican Party you talk about?
Well, okay, let's. We can go back to the Douglas County Party's convention.
What about it?
Well,
large people
very,
showed up.
very, very large people. Do they usually show up at the county level?
That's a good question. What about everybody there?
Well, then okay, and this is what I hear. I've not been part of the Republican Party, but let me tell you what us lay people think.
Sure.
That the Ron Paul supporters were trying to take over the party at one point.
What will we do if we take it over? What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Yeah, neither do we. so I'm not sure that anybody was trying to take over anything.
Well, Brian, but I know that you've taken a big bite just speaking your mind about Obamacare and about how Lee Terry should be focused on. You strongly feel that this is the wrong thing to do, and you're a leader of the party, but you seem to get slapped down because this ideology. This is how you feel, and I mean, to me, that seems to be a bit of a fracture within the party if you slap your own people. I mean, I've been slapped down by my party, when I was active, so I know how it feels. But when we hear these things, whether it be on Joe Jordan's blog, whether we hear about it in the World Herald or wherever, there seems to be a lot with all parties, except for Mike's.
Oh, we still have our share.
Do you?
We still have our share.
You gotta throw a throwdown or something. Get in the news.
There's always going to be disagreement
Right.
on strategies and how to handle different issues within a party. Sometimes it can be good for a party having that debate. Right now on that issue in particular, defunding Obamacare, our federal delegation is split on it itself. So I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. That means we're debating the issues and that's what it's all about, right? The way I look at it, instead of a fracture, I've seen over the last couple of years a lot of new energy come into the Republican Party, which I think has been missing. I mean, the new people coming in, they're sticking around, they're volunteering, they're well educated, and
are you saying because there's more activity, you've got more people involved, which actually makes you stronger, and you get more people involved running for office?
Just like a competitive primary can be good for a party. I think debating the issues and bringing new energy and new ideas into a party is good for the party.
So, Mike, Libertarian Party. We've been part of forums, and I think one of the best things that you do, and I know people cheer when you say it, is this is not across a single aisle. There is always multiple. There's a third way.
Right.
But even then, at the gun forum that we were at, you actually had the Green Party there, you had the Tea Party there. There are so many different ideologies out there. Is there too much to pick from?
I don't think so. I mean, if you go to the store, you've got how many different cereal brands, how many different cell phones that you can choose from. Perhaps in some consumer areas we have too much choice, but not in the political world, especially when you've got a situation where a lot of states have restrictive ballot access laws. And so we fought back in 2012 to change the laws here to make it more open for other parties to get and stay on the ballot. However, it's not like that case in a lot of states. So what we have to fight against is legislation, first of all, people looking at us as being legitimate, even though we are. I think one of the greatest victories for us within the last couple of years, not only was the legislation, but if you look at the presidential election, our candidate, Gary Johnson, got almost 2% of the vote here in the state. At that point, we had 3,000 registered libertarians. 11,000 people voted for him.
Okay.
So that's assuming every single registered libertarian got out and voted, and then
9,000 extras.
Extras, exactly. You've got in this state the Democratic and the Republican Party losing percentages. The independents growing. They don't know where they're going to go. They're still uncertain about the only other party that's out there right now. I'd love to see the Green Party and other parties on the ballot because I welcome more choices, but you've got to give people more opportunity to voice their opinion, because when you're looking at a Republican Party, and I have a lot of respect for you guys, but there's a connotation, like there is with the Libertarians, that Republicans are anti-science, pro-religion, and you look at the Democratic Party and they're very pro certain types of science, very anti-religion.
Well, and that brings up, and I wish Vince Power was here, because the question I was going to ask him, they've got two candidates for governor, Ann Dubas and Chuck Hasselberg. And Ann is pro-life, Chuck is pro-choice. The party, the Democratic Party platform is pro-choice. Do you guys see that candidates are getting away and from the party standard and the party planks? Are those candidates becoming more successful than those that are lockstep? John?
It's hard to say. Due to the campaign finance law changes, less money goes to the party, and thus less influence
Much
of the
less,
party
yeah.
to the candidate. It used to be that the candidate was an unknown. They put a sign up, they made sure they had Democrat or Republican on the sign because they wanted to affiliate with somebody, and plus the party was there helping them out.
Here's a good question. Last candidate you saw that had a party affiliation on the sign?
Ryan Power, who ran for Metro Board.
Last one you saw?
They use colors.
They use colors.
Yeah, it's
and every single yard sign has a star. If you noticed that too?
Yeah. Right.
I'm going to start voting for the person that does not have a star on the yard sign.
But that's the point where they stop using the party, because the party has become weak because there's no money being donated to the party. Through the party system, it was where...
So how do your parties survive? How are your parties going to survive?
That's a valid question, and that's part of the reason why I jumped into, well, thank you for asking that. That's why I jumped into the party system 7 or 8 years ago and said, this is the tool, this is the way we have to do this. And showing that we can bring more libertarian ideas. I would call those the old right ideas from the 30s and 40s, actually. But that's bring those back into the Republican Party and see if we can't grab some of those nonpartisans that are out there that get fed up with, like you said, family values was the only thing. Family values and anti-drug or whatever. That was all you ever heard about from H.W. Bush. That's all. Well, they took the Republican Party from a less what I would say true conservative and made it just the party of family values, and that was it. Big government's great as long as you got family values, and I'm not for that.
Guys, I appreciate you guys. We need to have some more of this. One of the things that we're going to start doing is more of a political roundtable on a lot of different issues, and I glad you guys, and tell Laura she's always welcome anytime she wants. I know she's got a long trip if she comes out here, but I want to thank Larry Bradley for being on our show. Again, we'll have his website in our closing credits so you can learn more about ranked choice voting or consensus voting. And of course, we've got our friends Mike, John, and Brian here. We'll be right back.
Listen, I think it's time we had that talk. Now, I can tell that you really like this girl, but I think you kids move way too fast. I just need to know that you're using protection.
Dad.
So buckle up, son. And no sex!
Do you know about 211? It's help for an elderly relative or a troubled teen, family counseling, or job training. Instead of hunting for phone numbers, dial 211. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to someone who will find the local information you need. United Way and its statewide partners want you to get connected and get answers. Dial 211 or go online at ne211.org.
I'm an advocate for anything that will motivate and increase citizens to get out and vote. The concept of allowing voters to choose more than one candidate brings forward some interesting questions. Aren't we built upon the idea of a one person, one vote? And doesn't allowing voters to vote for 1, 2, or even 5 candidates for a single office a little out of line? Maybe. But where's the responsibility of the candidates and their campaigns to reach out and get their supporters to the polls in the primary? Another question is, could this end the alienation of voters through negative campaigning if someone's second choice vote may really count for something? If the path of elections is heading to this style of elections, then why stop at the statewide partisan races, as Larry suggested? Let's have all elections utilize this consensus voting and perhaps save the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars by eliminating the need for elections. For example, if there are 2 or more candidates for a state legislative race in the May primary, and if one of those candidates receives 50% plus 1, declare them the winner. This will also be very useful in the Omaha city races, whether it be for mayor or any one of the city councils. Now, one thing that's key to the viability of this concept is that the cost of the implementation. This proposal will require possibly a new style ballot, therefore maybe a new counting machine. Not to mention the elections that have both partisan and nonpartisan races may mean they need 2 completely different ballots altogether, and those are counted by 2 completely separate and completely different machines. But I fear the biggest hurdle that Larry may face in getting this is getting elected officials who, by their own right, are also candidates to buy into this proposal and then get a governor who may be thinking about re-election or perhaps a higher office sign off on that bill. Now, I think it's a good idea. I think it's an idea that still needs a lot of details to be worked out. Now, I think citizens may like this idea, but they may not like the price tag that comes with it. Thanks for joining us this morning, and remember, everyone has a point of view. Respect it.